Hello, everybody, and welcome to another community
First of all, Mayor,
conversation.
thank you very much for giving me the opportunity.
Facebook Live.
Just one portion of the
We serve the many homeless people
every
with
office that
I've met has that passion.
Hello, everybody. Welcome to another edition of Community Conversations right here on Facebook Live. I'm Mayor Eric Pappenfuss, and boy, we've got a great show today. Lots of important conversations. We're going to begin with a discussion with Mayor Michael Tubbs, the former mayor of Stockton, California, who's now the chair for Mayors for a Guaranteed Income. And we're gonna talk a little bit about universal basic income, a guaranteed income approach here in Harrisburg, and what we can learn from Stockton. We'll do that in the first half of the show. We'll take your questions if you're watching, and then we're going to turn to some local news. We've got Ambrose Buck from our Department of Public Works to talk to us about some of the work they're doing. Robert Brightbill, who is a building construction instructor at Dauphin County Technical School, and Kevin Culp, president of the Harrisburg Senators, to talk to us about opening day, which is coming up for the Senators. We're really excited about that. But as always, let me start with just a few general announcements. Let's begin with the BioBot data. I'm encouraged because, as you'll see on the graph that Moment will put up on the screen, we continue through our analysis of the city's wastewater to see a decline in terms of the prevalence of the virus. It's still there. It hasn't gone as low as last summer's levels, but we're seeing a sort of sustained pattern over the past three testings. If you look at the next graph, you'll still see that we are higher than 70% of the samples throughout the country. And we're averaging what works out to be about 110 new cases a day. So certainly not through the woods, but not ticking back up as we were over the winter and even in February and March. So that is good news for the city. We're going to talk next week to some folks that have been putting together mobile vaccine clinics here in the city of Harrisburg, and we'll talk a little bit more about the obstacles to getting everyone vaccinated in Harrisburg and what we're doing to try and bring the vaccine to the public. But I wanted to share the data so you could see that we continue to trend under the 7-day rolling average for new cases in Dauphin County. So that's positive news. We brought back outdoor dining and Saturday nights in the city. That's going to continue here for the summer, which means the downtown streets will be closed. People will be outside dining and enjoying themselves. We hope you'll be able to come and take advantage of it, make a reservation at one of your favorite restaurants, and have a chance to support our restaurant community as it tries to get back on its feet here as we transition to a new post-COVID world. And then Artsfest is coming back. The 53rd annual Artsfest is going to be held on May 29th through the 31st. It's being reimagined as we have all of our festivals, and we're going to be offering a hybrid experience this year that combines in-person juried artisan food trucks along with virtual presentation and an online artisan market. The festival layout is going to look different this year. All activities are going to be held on City Island, and there's going to be a larger area for social distancing, slightly reduced number of vendors, controlled entry and exit points, and there's additional health and safety modifications to make sure that everyone will be safe. We'll have the hand washing stations out. We'll have vendors spaced out, and again, masks will be required. But at least we're going to a hybrid model this year. It was 100% virtual last year, and that's a good sign. Also, I wanted to announce a exciting development for the city that's coming up this Thursday, May 13th. We're going to do the groundbreaking for the first day officially on the job for the new 2nd Street Multimodal conversion. This, of course, is converting this major highway through the center of the city into a two-way configuration, more in keeping with the neighborhood. It's going to be a project that's going to last into next year, but if you want to come on out and celebrate, meet the contractors, and see the project begin, we're going to groundbreak for that this Thursday at 10 a.m., and that'll be on 2nd and Bow Street, so come on out for that. And there will be a city council meeting, of course, this week. It'll be a legislative session, lots of important business. I hope you'll be able to join us for that. It will be held virtually on May 11th at 6 p.m. So sign in and become a part of city council. So with those announcements, we're going to turn to our guest of honor today, Mayor Michael Tubbs, again, the founder and chair of Mayors for a Guaranteed Income. He's also a special advisor to Governor Newsom in California on economic mobility and opportunity. And Mayor Tubbs, I just wanted to start by saying, you know, Stockton and Harrisburg have been linked in the news for quite some time. When Stockton went bankrupt back in 2012, that was at the same time that the city of Harrisburg tried to file for bankruptcy. The approaches were a little bit different. In Pennsylvania, we weren't allowed to enter bankruptcy, and the state actually put the city in receivership, and there was a restructuring that occurred, a little different than what happened in Stockton, but we both sort of share that story of what it meant to sort of rebuild post bankruptcy. And then I wanted to mention this to our viewers here today. Just received the new book by Elizabeth Hinton. I'm going to show that to the camera a moment if you can zoom in on it. It's called America on Fire: The Untold History of Police Violence and Black Rebellions Since the 1960s. Elizabeth Hinton is professor of history and African American studies at Yale University. This book isn't out yet. It's actually coming out on the 18th. And we'll see if we can get her on the show for next week to talk a little bit about the book. But what's interesting about the book is that Stockton and Harrisburg are both case studies in an analysis of urban rioting, which occurred throughout the country in the late 60s, and really it was the precursors for a lot of the Black Lives Matter movement that we see today. And better called Urban Rebellions by Professor Hinton. And she talks about the history of over-policing and indeed police violence in both of our cities in a way which is very prescient for the present. And you know, one of the lessons that can be drawn from the book is that if we want to see real change to systemic issues such as systemic racism and systemic or generational poverty, then we have to think big, and we have to come up with programs like the program that was piloted by you in Stockton, California, first in the nation, to establish a sort of universal basic income approach to ending poverty in your city. Now, this is something that we're considering in Harrisburg, more than considering. I want to move forward with it, and there's a lot that we can learn from the Stockton experiment, and there are many aspects of the study which have just been recently published, and we're fortunate that the University of Pennsylvania is actually sort of leading the charge in terms of the Center for Analysis of this. But we wanted to have you on, and let's just begin. You know, tell us about what you did in Stockton, how it worked, and why you decided to really put forth the first mayor-led program anywhere in the country. Welcome.
Well, thanks so much for having me, Mayor. Whenever you term out or retire, I see a TV show in your future. I learned so much just from the first 10 minutes of being on, and Dr. Hinton's a dear friend. I was talking to her yesterday.
Good.
I can't wait to read the book, and I'm so glad to hear that under your leadership, the city of Harrisburg has turned the page and is thriving and leading and doing so much better. So kudos to you and your team. In terms of the guaranteed income pilot we did in Stockton in 2017 when we announced, part of it was sort of how I think you govern, was looking at the data, was looking at the numbers and realizing that my biases or my ideas about how the world worked or why people were struggling may or may not be true. But what was true was that poverty was the root of all of our issues in Stockton. When we talk about educational attainment, when we talk about economic insecurity, when we talk about even crime and violence, at the root of all that was just the pernicious nature of poverty in the city, and the fact that it was systemic, the fact that it was generational, and the fact that it was about a third of our children were living in poverty in the city. And I would argue another third were just one paycheck away. So I did research and read and realized that Dr. King, before he was assassinated, talked about how the simplest way to abolish poverty is the most direct. And I start there because for me, I just don't see the function, the value, or the benefit of poverty in the 21st century of civilized society. I don't see who wins. I don't see how we're better. I don't see how that helps us live up to our values. So we piloted the idea of a guaranteed income, understanding that cities can't do a universal basic income program or even a guaranteed income program at massive scale because cities have to balance budgets. The only form of government, the only part of our government that can actually deficit spend is our federal government. But we also knew that did not absolve us of doing nothing. We couldn't just point the finger, but we have to use our city as a laboratory for democracy and really provide data and evidence and anecdotes to speak to why a guaranteed income is an important part of a conversation about the social safety net. And then COVID-19 happened after a year of the pilot, and we saw how no matter how hard people were working, if your job is closed, you can't go to work. No matter how much you want to work, if the doctor says 2 weeks at home, you have to stay at home and you don't have paid time off. No matter, and we saw just how the economy just wasn't working for working people. And we also saw, we've had this conversation the past year about how particularly women who do domestic work, caregiving work, childcare work, do it at home and uncompensated, but that is truly work. So we started Marriage for a Guaranteed Income. And then this year, the findings came out from the first year, which is 2019, because we gave 125 residents, all who lived in the census tract that was at or below the city's median, which means 75% of the city qualified. We gave them 125 people, $500 a month for 2 years on debit cards. And what we found after 1 year is really three things. Number one, that and please turn up the volume on this, folks. The guaranteed income actually allowed people to transition from part-time work to full-time work, meaning that those who received the guaranteed income worked more. And not that, in my opinion, work in and of itself isn't a vice or a virtue, but for a lot of people, there's this notion that we don't want to give people money because people won't work. The data doesn't say that's true. The data says actually the $500 was enough to serve as a bridge to opportunity. So folks were able to take time off their part-time job and apply for full-time jobs, buy clothes for interviews, get their cars fixed. The second big finding was around what people spent their money on. 98% of the dollars went to non-drugs and non-alcohol. The money went to how you and I spend money, Mayor. The money went to utilities, went to food, went to children, went to sort of one-time expenses that were very debilitative. And then the third thing we found is that actually the guaranteed income had impacts on health. That folks received the guaranteed income on the Kessler scale moved from depressed to not depressed. They were less stressed, less anxious, and more able to be present as parents, as partners, and as neighbors. So as you can tell, I'm through the moon. Since then, we've started Marriage for a Guaranteed Income. I'm excited to see on my Twitter feed that you have also joined. So now we're up to about 46 mayors from across this country who are saying, look, the status quo isn't working. As mayors, we have a mandate to do something for our people. And let's test, let's pilot. And then once we have the data, let's move to policy so that everyone has an income floor in our country.
Yeah, that's it's an amazing story, and the findings really run contrary to public perception. I think that's one of the things that's so exciting about what was reported from your city was that it ran against conventional thought, and it makes sense when you think about it that if you help people deal with being able to have food security and a sense of security of place, so they're going to be able to pay their utilities, they're not going to be able to be evicted, then of course they can go back to school. If they can pay their child care bills, then of course they can perhaps get a better job or move from part-time employment to full-time employment. But the data nonetheless shows this, and one of the reasons that you were able to collect the data, and I think you should tell our viewers a little bit about it, is that that the way it worked in Stockton was you had sort of two groups. You had a control group, and you had another group that was given debit cards, and then the spending on those debit cards was able to be sort of tracked, so that. But tell us a little bit more just about practically how did you do it, and how did you determine some of the difficult choices, like who was going to be able to participate, amidst so much need?
Yeah, and luckily for me, just like you, I had an amazing team. I'm starting with our evaluators who now run the Center for Guaranteed Income Research. We started at UPenn, and others. And essentially, we did a community sort of listening and engagement process because, again, this was in 2017. So there were 0 mayors for a guaranteed income. There were 0 guaranteed income pilots being led by cities. The whole idea was so new and foreign to people. So we spent a year in a community design process, which had an advisory group of community members, some who were supportive, some who weren't, who really went on this learning journey with us. And I listened to folks in the community, and we found that people realized that we weren't able to help everyone, but they wanted at least a process, at least in Stockton, to feel like everyone had a chance to be a part. And that's why our criterion was live at or below the city's median income, because that meant 75% of the city qualified. But other than that, there was no other requirements. We sent letters out to addresses, not to names, and whoever got the mail was able to decide who in the family or the household was able to participate in the study. And then we also did a control group because we thought it was also important to show sort of comparatively these two groups of people started identical on paper in terms of race, ethnicity, income levels, education levels, et cetera, and see the drastic difference after just 1 year, with the only sort of measurable change being one group received $500 a month and one group didn't. So the control group was of 500 folks, and they did surveys, they shared their spending data, and were able to compare that way. And then we used debit cards because we knew that one of the questions people wanted to know was how the money was spent. But we were very clear with our participants that they weren't used in a punitive way to look at, the only one that had access to that data was our researchers, A. But B, they didn't report it at an individual level, but at the aggregate level, in terms of this is what the whole body of folks did to really protect people's privacy. Because a big part of this demonstration for me wasn't just the data, but it was really proving A, you can trust people, and B, giving people the dignity and the agency to make decisions for themselves and their families, and not feeling too Orwellian or Big Brother-ish in terms of looking at and tracking or looking at every single purchase myself or the rest of the team that wasn't the researchers.
Sure, but the results have just been they've been phenomenal, and they show the importance of a program like this and how it might work. Let me just say from your program in Stockton was privately funded. It was foundation funded, and we're looking in Harrisburg to take advantage of the current moment, which is the American Rescue Plan, which has been passed by the Biden administration, and which is going to provide direct funding to cities like Harrisburg, and opens up a real opportunity for a sustained multi-year program, especially as the guidelines are being written for that, and there's going to be payment over multiple years. And the question, I guess, now is it's sort of twofold. One is, why now? And you could argue that for sure, one of the reasons is that the wealth disparity in Harrisburg and throughout the country has only been further exacerbated by COVID. And, if we are going to bounce back from COVID, we've got to make sure that everyone bounces back, and we've got to look at addressing these basic systemic issues. And then number two, we need to take advantage of federal policy, which is providing resources and providing funds to cities which have historically been disinvested in, and seize this moment to do something big and bold. I saw that Eric Garcetti in Los Angeles who's somebody that I've admired for a long time, is doing a program in Los Angeles for 2,000 families, and I thought to myself, well, that's Los Angeles. 2,000 families in a city of millions of people is one thing, but in Harrisburg, we're a small city. We're actually smaller than Stockton, and if we could help 2,000 families, it would be truly transformative. So, what are you seeing as the head of this mayor's group across the country? What are you seeing in terms of various approaches, and how is the discussion really coming to the forefront now as cities are going to be receiving funds from the American Rescue Plan?
It's really amazing the way the mayors have taken the baton and sprinted with it. So actually in August, Mayor Melvin Carter, when the co-chairs with Eric Garcetti of Mayors for Guaranteed Income of St. Paul, he said in 2000, when Trump was still president, I'm using some of these American Rescue Plan dollars to do a guaranteed income for families in St. Paul. And I think he was the first mayor to use sort of public funds to do so. And since then, we've had Garcetti and others saying, okay, this is the moment, this is the time, not to be bold for boldness sake, but because we've seen how the former status quo just left us woefully unprepared for a pandemic. And it just wasn't working, it hadn't worked, and it has to change. And I think to your point raised earlier about Dr. Hinton's book, so much of the Black Lives Matter protests we've seen weren't just about police brutality, in my opinion. They were also about just the violence of poverty, right, the violence of a lack of opportunity. And I think a guaranteed income, particularly given its roots in the civil rights tradition, with Dr. King, the National Welfare Organization, the Black Panthers, and others calling for it, is something that meets those demands as well, in terms of the right to live and exist in this democracy and to live with dignity and with the ability to provide for basics. So I am through the moon and excited. And I think to your point, if we would did 2,000 people in Stockton, it would have been transformational. And I think for the city, it's the most important investment that you can make. And we have a once in a generation opportunity. This is our New Deal moment. When we look at our existing social safety net, we think of Social Security, we think of unemployment insurance. Those were all radical ideas in 1930. Those did not exist before the Great Depression. But leaders saw what was missing and acted on it. And I think in the same way, mayors like yourself and even the federal government with the child tax credit, which is a guaranteed income for families, are really leaning in and saying, how do we not just bounce back, but how do we bounce forward and continue to move and progress on our path to becoming a more perfect union?
Yeah, well, look, I couldn't agree more. And one of the interesting things, and we'll return to Dr. Hinton's book, America on Fire, again, which is coming out here on May 18th, is that we knew it. Communities knew it in 1969. Not only had Dr. King, literally gone to bat for the concept of a guaranteed income, but if you look at the Human Relations Commission that formed after the rebellions in Harrisburg or around the country, it was a moment when people recognized that if we were going to deal with issues of systemic racism and police brutality, we needed to address poverty, and we didn't. And the legacy of the past 50 years has unfortunately not been progress on that front. In fact, the wealth disparities are greater than ever, right? And the COVID has now almost exacerbated to the point where we have an eviction moratorium in place in Harrisburg that can't go on forever. But the fear is that if it's lifted, hundreds and hundreds of people would lose their homes. So how do we provide them with a measure of security? How do we get past COVID without leaving people behind? We've got to think about issues such as a guaranteed income. So Mayor Tubbs, thank you so much. I'm pleased to be a member of your organization. We're going to do this here in Harrisburg. We're going to utilize our friends at the University of Pennsylvania to help us shape this program, and we're going to lead the charge moving forward. And Moment, I'll just turn it over to you before we go to our other guests. And I know Mayor Tubbs has to go. Do we have any questions from our Facebook audience?
Yes, thank you, Mayor. We have a comment. Let's see. Let me bring that up here. Connie is excited about the book, first of all. And as far as questions, there's a question about the recurring payments aspect of the guaranteed income. Are those payments for a certain limited time, or is it kind of an ongoing, indefinite amount of recurring payments?
Well, ideally, once it's a policy and not a pilot, it would be sort of ongoing. And we've heard sort of from members of Congress saying, let's make the child tax credit permanent, which would be a monthly reoccurring cash payment to families with children. And that is the closest I think we are to a guaranteed income policy. But in terms of what cities are doing to test case is saying, hey, with the resources that we have and we can spend, let's do 1 year, let's do 2 years, let's do 3 years.
Yeah, and that's what we do here in Harrisburg Moment. We do more than a year. We do at least 2 years, and we have the resources to do it. It's really a once in a generation opportunity. We've never had such resources coming to Harrisburg. Mayor Tubbs, Harrisburg's got $48 million coming through the American Rescue Plan. Of course, there are a lot of needs, but that is enough in a small city like ours, much smaller than Stockton, to make all the difference in people's lives.
$85 million.
Yeah.
Which is remarkable.
Yeah.
Okay, great. Next, regarding low-income families, that income threshold, right? Like who can receive the payments. Do you have any thoughts of what that income threshold should be, or should it basically change based on the city?
I think the federal government has laid down the marker. I think they said 75K or below for individual, which in Stockton would be 75K is like 20K or 30K above the median household income. So I think there's a number there depending on resources. I am someone, I oftentimes get in trouble for it, but I think those who need the most help should get the most help and should be first in line for help. So I would say, I think Dr. Palmer calls it a preferential option for the poor. And I would say sort of ensuring that those who absolutely need it get it first. And then if there's room, adding on others who may need it at varying degrees would be my philosophy. But every city is going about it differently.
Yeah. And in Harrisburg, of course, we have we know what the median household income is. We have the numbers from HUD, but we actually have a higher poverty rate than Stockton, and we. And if you do what Mayor Tubbs did, and you include those that are living, sort of around the poverty line, then you're looking at the majority of the population, which is pretty extraordinary. So the need is absolutely there. The question of where we draw the line, well, that's going to have to be part of the public discussion moving forward. But the resources are there to help thousands of families, and in a community like Harrisburg, that could be extraordinary.
And I think we have time for one more question. Mayor Tubbs, as far as what was the biggest surprise for you, with this whole program and pilot, or a surprise that you saw in Stockton or that you've heard from other mayors?
In terms of the results, it's not because I'm like Miss Cleo or clairvoyant, but I just know a lot of people who struggle. Like I grew up in poverty. Like most of my friends, I wasn't surprised that people knew how to spend money. I was not surprised people went to work. So I just thought of the people who raised me and the people who are my friends and family. And I was like, yeah, they're not going to spend all this money on drugs and alcohol. So I wasn't surprised at that. I was surprised at how so many people would rather cling to bias than data. Like even with the data being out, I'm still arguing with folks about skip what the data says. I believe because I've been taught or I have these biases. And that for me has been a surprise. So spending a lot of time now thinking about, in addition to the data, how do we tell a different story? How do we message it? How do we allow people to see what's real and what's reality versus what's biased, and oftentimes what's racist, what's just not true or what's not really grounded in fact. And that's going to be a long journey, but that's what I'm excited about digging into now.
All right, great, thanks.
Well, listen, thank you, Mayor Tubbs, for sharing your story. Thank you for the work that you're doing throughout the country. Look forward to staying in touch with you and learning from the Stockton experiment. It's an incredible moment that we're in now, and I think if mayors especially step up and take the lead, we can change the face of America, and we can do great, bold things. So, thanks for joining us.
Here, Mayor. So anything I can do to help, please let me know. And congratulations, Harrisburg, for having such a visionary, forward-thinking, and intelligent mayor.
Thanks. All right. Well, with that, we're going to turn to some local topics here, and we're going to start with Ambrose Buck, who is our new Deputy Director of Public Works. Only a few weeks still on the job, maybe a month. I don't know, Ambrose. It's all a blur to me. But we wanted to give people a report on the new Pothole Tracker system and how it's working. I know that we've been inundated with requests, and we're trying to embrace this new technology. And so, Ambrose, let's share an update about the city's Pothole Tracker.
Sure. Thanks, Mayor. The city has a fantastic tool that allows the residents to communicate directly with the Public Works Department about potholes. Not only potholes, but there's also a lot of, I'll just call it substandard pavement, alleyways that maybe have become either rough or impassable. But this pothole report form allows you to enter in all of that data. Most importantly, right at the top, is a place to fill in the address. So please, the most important thing is what's highlighted on the screen right now, is to actually enter the address of the location that you're talking about. We are seeing quite a few entries that just click the use current location, and then the actual pothole or pavement flaw or whatever does not map properly. So please enter that address in. The map will snap to the address that you enter in. And then there's a section that you can put some details. And this is important too, because the fact is, Mayor, there's potholes and then there's potholes. So there's a lot of, in terms of PennDOT speak, a type A pothole is less than 3 inches deep, and a type B pothole is more than 3 inches deep. And as city employees and as people that are trying to maintain the road, that's a very different set of equipment that we need to take out to a job. So if there's any information at all that you can provide about the actual pothole, this would be the place to put it. What I try and do is look at the entries. I try and group them in geographic areas. And then I also try and make an assessment. Hey, is this something that we need to mill and then pave? Or is this something that we have to cut out individual pothole and dig? Some of these, take quite a bit of effort. I'm going to throw out a couple locations here. Seneca Street, Verbeck Street, both of those streets had very significant deep potholes. The last 2 days, we've been in Bellevue Park. Those areas, I would say, are not as deep, but they are spread out. So again, different equipment for different areas of the city for different pavement conditions.
Great. And we know there's a lot to be done. And as I talk to residents, one of the things that we discuss is how the city, for a long period of time, didn't have a comprehensive paving plan for all of our streets and roads. And we're moving in that direction. We're doing millions of dollars in comprehensive paving and road resurfacing and rebuilding. But it's going to take time to get us caught up, basically based on how large a hole we dug for ourselves as a city. But can you share some of the data, maybe so far? What have since we launched this pothole tracker? How many potholes have you filled, and how? Tell us some numbers.
Okay, a couple of fun facts, Mayor. The pothole tracker went live on April 22nd. Since April 22nd, there have been 220 entries into the program. There have been an additional 30 potholes reported through, phone calls, emails, the different communication methods that the city has. Before the pothole tracker even started, the city addressed 55 locations. There may be multiple holes per location. So I'll talk in general just about locations. Of the 176 unique locations that the city is tracking, we've completed about 95. So that's an encouraging number. It means that we're fixing the potholes faster than they're coming in. For example, the last 2 days, we have been in Bellevue Park. Bellevue Park is going to get some additional attention in terms of an engineering project that'll be announced later on. Allison Hill is also going to receive some additional attention outside of what the city is going to do. Next week, we plan on being uptown, Green Street, 3rd Street around Maclay, and then hopefully by the end of the week, we're going to be back in the Hill. Again, I try and group the potholes in terms of geographic location in the city and type of pothole. As I mentioned earlier, each type of pothole may require some different equipment. So when we mobilize that equipment to an area, we want to try and catch as many potholes as we can.
All right. Well, thank you, Ambrose, and thanks to your crew for the hard work that they're doing, and thank you as well for being on top of the communication side of this. I know you've personally reached out to individuals that have been using the Pothole Tracker, and there's a lot of work to be done, but you guys are doing yeoman's work. So thanks so much for what you do, and thanks for the update. All right, we're going to go next to an incredible project which is going on in the city that I've been hoping to spotlight now since I heard about it some months ago. And we've got Robert Brightbill. He is the building construction instructor at Dauphin County Technical School, and they are currently working on rehabbing a blighted property on Wiconisco Street here in the city of Harrisburg. But let's start, before we get to the specific project, there's been a lot of talk about the need for vocational training in Harrisburg. And tell us a little bit about what Dauphin County Technical School does, and who goes there, especially vis-a-vis the city.
Sure. Thank you, Mayor. It's really great to be here today. It's really nice to be brought into the circle of all that's happening in the city today. So, career and technical education is currently having its heyday. The job market is just booming, especially in the skilled trades areas, specifically in the construction area. There's just so many jobs out there, and there's more jobs than we have students for. In fact, today we're having a job fair here at DCTS this afternoon, where the employers are coming out to recruit kids, and many of them are coming with offering money just for sign-on bonuses. So it's just a huge time for career and technical education and for the trades in general. Harrisburg, as you know, Harrisburg did offer its own career and technical programs in the district up until about 9 or 10 years ago. And then, and since then, Harrisburg has started sending all of their students to Dauphin County Technical School. So there's now 8 consortium districts that are members of the Dauphin County Technical School. And Harrisburg School District represents about 18% of the student body at DCTS. So we have 185 students coming from Harrisburg High School to Dauphin County Technical School. And I think that's a really good thing. They're our second biggest sending school right after the Central Dauphin School District.
Yeah, no, it's absolutely an important thing. It's good to hear you confirming what I've heard from many of those in the trades, which is that it's really a question of how to fill the positions. There's an extraordinary amount of opportunity there. More to come, especially as we move past COVID. Lots of interest in development projects. But let's talk specifically about the renovation project that you're currently doing in the city, because this is something that we need, obviously, more of. We have a lot of blighted properties in Harrisburg. Let's talk about, first of all, so how did you identify this particular property location, and how are you using it as a part of your curriculum?
Yeah, thank you. So identifying the project was kind of an interesting process. One of my friends actually owned the house, and on April 4th of 2020, the house that he owned and rented out caught on fire and it burned. So he had this house sitting there for over a year. He was trying to sell it. He was having a hard time selling it because of the condition of the home. And when he mentioned it to me one day, I said, well, let's go take a look at it. So we drove down and we took a look at the house, and I said right away, this is something that I want to do. So I spoke to my boss, Dr. Karen Flug at Dauphin County Technical School. She's our director. And she said, let's put something together and take it to the school board. So we took it to the board, and we got everybody on board. And to be honest with you, I'm blown away by the amount of support that we've gotten throughout the area for this project. It's absolutely mind-blowing how much support we have for this project. Currently, our carpentry program and our building construction program have been working there usually about 4 days a week, full days down at the project, and we've just incorporated it right into our curriculum. The first thing we did was we had to gut the program, or gut the building, take all the plaster down. We've been remediating some of the foundation issues. And we're looking at doing some of the fire repair, and we have like a 2-year span that we're going to be working on this building, but we're going to incorporate programs from throughout the school. Our carpentry program, building construction program, our masonry program is going to help us with some of those needs. Our electrical program is going to be doing the wiring and putting in a new electrical service. Our HVAC, our heating, ventilation, and air conditioning program will be coming down with their students and putting brand new furnace and air conditioning in the house. Our drafting and design department has been involved with doing the drawings for us that we needed to move forward. So it's been a concerted effort by the entire school to support this project. It's really absolutely wonderful.
Oh, I mean, it absolutely sounds like it, and it's just a wonderful opportunity, I would imagine, to have this experimental classroom out in the community where students are going to be able to see the fruits of their labor as this house comes back to life. Can you talk about it from the student standpoint? What sort of things can you learn on site, so to speak, as opposed to perhaps in a classroom?
Well, anytime that you can get out and practice what you're doing in a real world environment, it's going to certainly improve your learning. You know, medical doctors don't learn what they need to learn by sitting in a classroom. They learn it by going into hospitals and working with patients. And with construction, it's the same way. So, just this week when we were building concrete forms and pouring concrete and putting rebar in and tying rebar to support to build the new foundation, that's something that's very difficult to replicate in our laboratory area here at DCTS. Building walls or working with a 100-year-old structure and putting in the supports that we need to put in and restructuring it is something that we can't replicate. But obviously there's a lot of older places in central Pennsylvania that need work. So it's just true hands-on learning. And that's the best learning that there can possibly be, especially when it can be done in service to others.
Well, absolutely. So what's the end goal here? What's going to happen to the house when you're finished?
Well, that's a very good question. So I've been working on that. Our goal is to sell the house when we're done and to roll the proceeds over into our next property. And I've been working with a great Harrisburg area business on that. Cordier Auctions has come on board and offered to help us out with the sale of the home when it's completed. So I'm really looking forward to getting it done. We're going to market the house in-house. So the students are going to be doing the marketing for the home. We're going to be having open houses when we're at the end. And then, like I said, Cordier Auctions has stepped in. They're going to help us do an auction sale of the house. So I'm really excited about that.
Oh, that's great. That's neat and should generate a lot of interest. And I hope it will lead to many projects here in the city and lots of opportunities for a collaboration. But thanks so much for giving us the update and letting us know about what's happening. And maybe we can get you back again when you are a little sort of closer to the end. I understand how much work it's going to take, and that really you want to sort of savor the learning experience of it and help benefit as many students as possible. So, Bob, thank you very much for telling us about the project.
You.
Okay. Well, our final guest is, I think, an entirely positive and exciting story, which is the return of baseball. So, Kevin, you have the distinction of ending the show here today with a real milestone, which is, boy, I mean, yes, last year was such a difficult year. Of course, we lost minor league baseball, but now minor league baseball is back, and it's going to be back in Harrisburg. It's going to be back in Harrisburg starting on May 11th. And why don't you let folks know a little bit about what to expect if they take in a Harrisburg Senators game this year, which we sure hope they will.
Yeah. Well, Mayor, thank you for having me on the show. I really appreciate the platform. We are so excited to be getting back to what we do, which is to bring affordable family entertainment to the region. That's what we're all about. And we really missed our fans in 2020. We have the opportunity now to kind of be one of those places that can reopen and be a kind of a sign of returning to normalcy a little bit, of do that in an appropriate, safe way. We take that responsibility very seriously. But fans, when they come to the ballpark, and we're in a very fluid situation with restrictions and guidelines. Just this past week, the governor revised the guidelines, which is going to impact our ability to move into the summer months a little bit. And we're at work right now to try to figure out the best way to appropriately maybe be able to bring a few more fans back into the ballpark once we get into June. But fans can expect that we're taking every precaution possible. If Major League Baseball and the state of Pennsylvania are really in line with their standards, their safety and wellness precautions, and that's great. We are going to have hand sanitizing stations all over the place. We are going to have more people than we've ever had, kind of just cleaning down, wiping down high touch areas. You'll have to wear a mask and a face covering to get in the ballpark and wear it as you're traveling around the ballpark. And for the month of May, we'll have pod seating where there's 6 feet distancing between every group of people in the ballpark. I'll tell you what, we're not quite there yet. We're about 3 days away now, and we're really excited about bringing baseball back. I will say this, fans expect a certain entertainment product when they come to the ballpark, and we decided very early on that no matter what the attendance restrictions were, no matter what the potential revenue was going to be for 2021, that we were going to bring baseball back the way people expect to bring it back, with the same types of giveaways, the fireworks, the promotions, the different things. Maybe we can't, because of baseball guidelines, we can't be on the field, but we can do our in-between stuff kind of off to the side and just do it in a unique, different way. But we are so excited, man.
Well, I couldn't be more excited for you. It was hard not having a year of development for minor league baseball. The major league schedule was so truncated and difficult last year. It's great to have baseball back. Now I know the season's already underway, but the home opener is coming up here. We had some reorganization in the minor leagues over the past year. Can you talk to folks a little bit about how the league has changed and maybe the restructuring has affected the Senators?
Yeah, and this was going to happen regardless of COVID. The Major and Minor League Baseball agreement expired at the end of September of 2020, and ultimately the major leagues wanted to reduce the number of players in their systems. They didn't feel like they needed to develop as many players as we're currently doing. So that meant there was going to be a reduction in the amount of teams. And in our league, there are a couple of changes. The team in Trenton, New Jersey is no longer part of our league, but the team in Somerset, New Jersey, which was an independent team in the same league as Lancaster and York were, has joined as the Yankees affiliate in our league. But the other 11 teams remain the same. We were fortunate enough to be selected by the Washington Nationals. We have a great relationship with them. We knew all along that they were happy here in Harrisburg. We've worked very hard on that relationship. But it was nice for that to be finalized and to receive a 10-year contract. It's going to be much longer than that, hopefully, but they do these in 10-year increments of a player development contract with them. It will require some changes, and some facility standards have changed that we have to get to compliance with over the next few years, and we're going to start to work on that here as soon as we kind of get open and kind of get our feet under us a little bit. But it has changed. Fundamentally, it won't change anything for the fans. They won't notice anything different about our structure. It may change a little bit about who does what in regards to the relationship between the minor league team and the major league team, but those are all kind of operational issues, and fans can expect more of the same from us, which is doing our best to put people in the ballpark, to be as good as stewards as we can, and to be as active in our community as we can possibly be.
Sure. And one of the things I noticed about the schedule is that you've only got basically one homestand against each team. So I guess that's in part to sort of reduce travel times. And then those homestands are a little bit longer than maybe you would normally expect. So I guess it means if you're an Oriole fan and you want to see Bowie play, or you're a Phillies fan and you want to see Reading play, you got to check that schedule and make sure you get the homestand, because there's really only one opportunity. Are there other aspects of the schedule you want to let people know about?
Well, the interesting thing, and I know they did this to reduce travel, but you mentioned it. You know, we're going to have a 6-day homestand that starts on a and goes through a Sunday. There'll never be a home game or a road game this year on a Monday. Monday is the league off day, so all the Mondays are clear. It gives the players a little bit of a. They'll never have a situation like they've had in the past where maybe they have 28 straight days, and it's happened that way where guys are going to get a little bit of a break. But we do play the same team for that, and this year because our schedule got started a little late and we are going a little longer than usual, but we still only have 60 home games. We usually have 70. We only play each team once. We don't play Binghamton at all anywhere on the schedule this year, and that's just a fluky thing that the schedule did. Ultimately, they were trying to put together a schedule this year that reduced travel and also gave the minor league cities like us here in Harrisburg a chance to play as many home games as we can with the same amount of weekends so that we get as many good home, premier home dates as possible. We are fortunate to be home over the 4th of July. We are not home over Memorial Day and not home over Labor Day weekend. But we do extend the season a little bit deeper into September than usual.
Well, I'll tell you why I like it as a baseball fan. I like it because it is going to give you an opportunity to see the entire rotation of the team you're facing. If you're an Oriole fan like I am, you want to come see DL Hall pitch, you'll be sure to get him on one of those homestand games. Let's give a little shout out to AA here because it seems to me that the real future major league talent is all at the AA level. I mean, AAA has those sort of marginal roster players that may be coming back and forth on the shuttle, but AA is where the premier talent is. Can you talk about some of the exciting players to see this year on the Senators?
Yeah, you nailed it, Mayor. The AA is such a dramatic difference than single A. It's the single biggest difference of a jump. So when guys get to AA, it is a really a make or break time for them. And a lot of those guys, getting to AA is really hard. Only a third of the guys that get drafted get this far. And then from here, only a third of the guys from here get to the major leagues. So this is a big step. This year we have 6 of the top 30 prospects that the Nationals have in their system, which is a good number for us. It's not surprising because this is a level that nobody is typically, unless you're Juan Soto and you're on that meteoric rise, you might spend only a cup of coffee at AA. But for the most part, guys, a good bit of time at AA baseball. But some names to look for on our roster this year, a couple pitchers, Tim Cate and Sterling Sharp. Those are both top 30 prospects. And the position players, there's 4 of the top 30, Drew Mendoza, Jackson Reitz, Nick Banks, and Jackson Clough, a couple outfielders, a couple infielders, all going to be really exciting players. The Nationals tend to draft athletes, guys who have multiple tools. Maybe it takes a little while to develop all those tools when you have so many of them, but you rarely see kind of one-trick pony as a position player for the Senators. So you're going to see a lot of great athletes, guys who are able to run, throw, hit, and do it all. But it'll be great, exciting baseball, and we got some good players. We should be a good team.
Great. That's going to be terrific. And I like the idea of being able to spread out a little bit more, having your family surround you in your pod, and it's going to be a great experience. You still have the live game experience. Tell us a little bit about ticket sales. How are they going? What does the public need to know?
For the month of May, we are at a reduced capacity and tickets are limited, but we do have tickets available, even still for next Tuesday, although they are very limited for Tuesday. So we are still selling tickets. We're selling them through our website. We are encouraging as much digital printing off of your tickets at home and bringing them and having them scanned at the gate to reduce touch points as we possibly can. We know that's not going to work for everybody, and we're prepared to deal with however, but you can get them at senatorsbaseball.com. There's a link right there to go buy your tickets. You can buy them in pods of 2, 3, 4, and 6 for the month of May. And we are getting ready probably in the next couple of days to put tickets on sale for June. And those will be done a little bit differently because of the revised standards. But even in June and beyond, when there is no capacity limitations or socially distancing limitations, we are going to take the step of having some sections that are still socially distanced and some that may be a little more wide open, because not everybody is in the same place in regards to their comfortability. And we want to be able to be we want to be as accessible as we can to the community as a whole. So you'll have some choices to make when you buy your tickets, even after the month of May.
Okay, yeah, I think that's smart. And I know we're on the positive, note here at the end of the show, but I should ask you the serious question of, how did you make it through last year? What's the future of minor league baseball for the Senators looking like? I know we're going to get to the other side of COVID here, but it had to have been tremendously difficult to lose a whole season. How did the Senators survive?
Well, it wasn't easy, and we're not through it yet. This is going to be a couple more years of impact. Obviously, I hope we're through the worst of it, but it is going to be a long road to hoe. There's not many companies that are positioned to have 20 months with no revenue. That's what we had to endure. We did have some little events last summer to try to keep ourselves active and in the community, but by and large, we've been shut down since Labor Day of 2019, and it's been difficult. Luckily, we have support of great partners. Our corporate partners, our municipality partners, the city of Harrisburg's been great. Our renaming rights partner, First National Bank, has been great. Our other corporate partners, and we have a great ownership group. We were unfortunate that we lost our majority owner, Mark Butler. He passed away in December, right before COVID, in December of 2019. But by and large, our ownership group is committed to making sure that we have the resources to survive. We've had to make sacrifices like a lot of companies have done, but we are looking to get to 22 and to 23 and to get over all of the impact that COVID has had. It's going to take that long, but we got to get through 21 before we get to 22, and there's going to be a lot of opportunity here in 21 to get back on the right track, and that's what we're looking forward to. This is going to be a process, but we are committed to it, and so far we have I definitely feel better. It's certainly easier knowing you have a season, and it's great for mind, body, and soul to open our gates again. But it's been a tough year, but we're looking forward to what's to come.
Great. Well, we wish you nothing but success. I hope everybody will come out and check out a game this year, or multiple games. And also, as consider coming back into the city, supporting our restaurants, coming out for Saturday nights in the city, checking out the new happenings on City Island and elsewhere, and helping us all get through this transitional period here at the end of the health emergency. So, Kevin, thank you for those updates. We can't wait to play ball here in Harrisburg. And Momin, any questions for the group?
Well, take me out to the ball game, first of all.
Okay.
I'm excited. We have a few comments here that I wanted to highlight. Comments about Bob and the Dauphin County Technical School. We're hearing from Andrea, Connie, Carolyn, and Marjorie. They're really excited about the project. Great. And the school as a whole and the great things that they're doing. So dcts.org is the link for more information about the school there, and we've put all the links for all the links that were mentioned during the program. For our Channel 20 viewers, I'll mention mayorsforagi.org if you would like to learn more about that. Senatorsbaseball.com about the tickets and schedule, all that great information is on there. And regarding potholes, harrisburgpa.gov/potholes to report a pothole.
Okay, well, lots of great information shared today. I want to say thank you so much for watching. I'm Mayor Eric Pappenfuss, and we'll see you again, of course, next week, Fridays at noon, here on Facebook Live. And until then, stay safe, be well, and let's play ball.